Ladies and gentlemen, SideStrafe back with another look at the War Thunder Ground Forces closed beta test. This was some footage I had gathered during a live stream the other night in one of the Panzer IV variants on Kursk, which I haven't really featured a whole heck of a lot on the channel. Of course, beta is beta, and often there are things that don't really make for good commentary, so I had been focusing on just live streaming the game a lot more since they are now allowing us to do so. As you can see here, we were within the Kursk map, and this is, of course, the simulator battle mode, which is typically where I spend most of my time. You don't have to deal with name tags showing up through trees. And generally, on most maps, there aren't any respawns. I think that they've been playing around with that. For example, in the Kursk maps, it seems like you get one respawn, at least at this point in time. Sometimes they turn it off completely. I'm not sure what they're going to settle on. Now, out of the maps recently added, this is probably one of the more popular ones, just because it's a bit more historically accurate. And I think it's easier for the tanks to take advantage of their long-range or high-velocity main guns. But it does have its issues. You saw a lot of tracer fire there on the left. Those are mostly bots shooting at each other. There's ground and air AI in this game mode. And it's kind of cool because it makes you feel like you're part of a large battle. But it is hard to decipher a bot from an actual player, so it can be problematic. Of course, that issue mostly exists within simulator battles, since you can't see any name tags on the enemies. And after a while, with some practice, you begin to recognize enemy players from bots, and the bots are typically the same types of tanks. They're generally in the middle of the map. They're usually just moving in a forward direction or sitting completely still, firing at other bots. And beyond that, you're just dealing with 20mm anti-aircraft guns, or maybe some other type of anti-tank gun that's really not posing much of a threat to you. Beyond that, as you can see here, most players tend to skirt the left and right sides of the map, as eventually there is a border, and it's best to protect at least one of your flanks that way. You can also kind of track anything coming from the middle, or perhaps even trying to come at you through the other sides, and hopefully get the drop on them. There's also some good hull down areas on the right side of the field, so most people that are playing this, they're learning about that, and you're generally going to find more players on these flanks than you will in the middle of the map. In fact, being in the middle is pretty much a death sentence, mostly because there's just so much going on, even with the AI. Even though they really can't hurt you, you don't know what's going on most of the time because you're taking hits and you're hearing the sound effects from all directions, that it's hard to concentrate on a real player attacking you. So with that said, the gameplay does end up getting predictable. You're either going to go left or right, taking out enemy players first, and then perhaps working on some of the AI. You're always going to get players that are going to want to focus on the AI and objective first, and sometimes that will actually just win you the game, and that's alright, I suppose. So it can switch up in that area, but again, for the most part, the people that have figured out the map are going to be spending most of their time on the flanks. On top of that, you're really going to have to keep your eye on the sky, not for the bots, but more so for experienced pilots that are trying to hit you with rockets or bombs. Generally, they will absolutely ruin your day if you are not careful. Now, you might be thinking, well, what about friendly pilots or anti-aircraft guns, flak panzers and whatnot? And yeah, that would be great if you actually had them to rely on. Most of the times, as I'm playing as the Germans, I'm usually getting hit by IL-2s or something, and we don't have any anti-aircraft support. The AI certainly not doing much, and I don't think that most people are going to want to bring in a flak panzer. On top of that, when you pick your vehicle, you have no idea what map you're getting into. It's almost as if the game needs to allow you to be able to pick your tank or vehicle as you see what map you're entering. And then after you've chosen that vehicle, you won't be allowed to switch. I think that that would be a way to make things work, because sometimes you get into a map where having a flak panzer is absolutely useless. However, here it would be a good option to have one because there's a lot of aircraft, whether they're bots or actual players. I do believe that the maps could use some work and help. I don't know if it's just lacking experience or whether they don't feel that they want to go in a direction that resembles World of Tanks. We're seeing maps that are kind of basic. They seem fairly simplistic. Even the other ones that have a bit more detail seem like they could have been thrown together within the period of a week in a simple drag and drop interface. It's something where I think they lack character. There's nothing that makes you say, oh, I really love this map, or I really hate this map. It's just kind of meh all around, you know? And if you look at this map, obviously Kursk, you know, the wide open fields, well, it is historically accurate, but you can see that it probably didn't take them a really long time to make this. Now, I think we need to see something with villages, buildings, more urban settings. I'm not saying they all have to be like that, but I want to see a bit more variety. I want to see some more structures, different types of cover. We only really have maps that have some bunkers, and we haven't seen a house or a real big building or other type of concrete structure at all. And there were a lot of tank battles that were fought over controlling villages or towns, and I hope that we do end up seeing something like that, because I think it really adds to the gameplay. Here you'll see we're taking some fire from, I believe, 20mm. Maybe it's anti-aircraft turned into ground defense. I'm not sure, but generally not going to pose a threat. Again, I don't think I've ever actually been killed by ground AI, whether it's some sort of anti-tank gun or a tank. Usually you're just wanting to watch out for enemy planes and other tanks. Beyond that, the damage modeling has improved since my last War Thunder Ground Forces video. Before, it was impossible for Germans to destroy a tank without unloading every single round you have and trying to somehow get lucky. Here you are able to take out an enemy, especially if you've loaded up something with high velocity like armor-piercing composite rigid. The problem is it seems like some tanks or tank destroyers might not be working correctly. The Zu-76, I can report, is fairly problematic. One time I believe I counted 25 shots into one, and I think it finally blew up on the 26th shot. It got set on fire twice. The individual was able to use his fire extinguisher. On the third time it caught fire, he was out, so it finally exploded. Now the thing is, I was using armor-piercing composite rigid, and it should have been Swiss cheese. That tank destroyer, really thin armor. The rounds are probably over-penetrating, but it should have outright killed his crew members. Should have destroyed pretty much everything within it. I just don't see how it should have survived 26 direct hits, or 25, and then finally exploding on the 26th. It just seems a bit silly, especially in simulator battles. And it brings up another thing in regards to crew members. Now, in sim battles, you would think that if you hit a crew member, if they take a blast, if they're hit, even if the round breaks up and turns into shrapnel, we've heard the horror stories of being inside of a tank and a crew member getting hit. A lot of times they're losing a body part, you know. It's gruesome, it's terrible, but it happens. And if you're thinking about it in a video game, in games like World of Tanks, War Thunder currently, a crew member can get hit, but they don't die. They just slow down. If your loader's hit, you load really slow. If your driver's hit, you can't drive as well. And should that be a thing in simulator battles? Or should the crew member be completely knocked out? Should they be dead? If the damage model determines that they've been hit hard enough, then should they be KIA? Should they be able to perform their job anymore if they've taken a massive hit? You imagine an 88mm snapping through a lightly armored tank? Why should that guy be alive in something called simulator battles, right? I mean, I'm just thinking logically here. Now, I know you might be thinking from a gameplay perspective, well, that's not really fair. What am I supposed to do if my driver gets killed or my gunner's dead? Like, what am I supposed to do? Well, at that point, gunner gets killed, commander takes over. Driver gets killed, well, do you have a bow gunner? In some cases, they're called the co-driver as well. Can they take over? Can they remove the body somehow, push it away, get into the driver's seat? Can they take control of the tank? Is there a separate set of controls depending on what kind of tank you're in? Is it possible? You know, those things come into play. And if you can't, if you've only got one driver, maybe a center seat driver, like in some Russian tanks, if that guy's knocked out, well, you're not driving unless somehow somebody can climb down below if there's a way to get into that compartment. I'm talking simulator battle stuff because when you say simulator, well, I expect it to simulate real life. So I'm thinking that that's what should be in the game. But here, you hit a crew member, they're just slower. Now, in arcade mode, realistic battle, of course not. Crew member should just get wounded. That's fine. They react slower. I'm okay with that. So I don't want people to freak out on me and think, oh, no, you're crazy. That's not fair. Da, 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 da. If you want real life, go join the military. Hold on. Relax. No, I'm just saying in simulator battles, if you're going to name something that, then maybe the crew member, if he's hit, should probably be dead, especially depending on what kind of round hit them. Again, we've heard the horror stories. We know what these things are capable of doing to the human body. I'm just saying. When you're shooting 26 rounds at a lightly armored tank destroyer, I would think that you should probably be out of action well before even the second or third round. But, you know, that's just me. That's just me being logical and having some sort of common sense. I know, again, a lot of people tend to disagree with me, but that's why there are two other modes that you have to yourself. Am I right or am I right? Now, again, I don't want you to think I'm being negative here. A lot of people perceive honesty as negativity. They don't know the difference, but what it comes down to is just facts. And I will say that on a more positive note, the damage model is improving. Like I said earlier, the Germans are finally able to take out Russian tanks. There was something absolutely broken with them before. They can do damage now. It just so happens that the Russians had a good idea. They decided to slope the armor on some of their early tanks, and it really helped them out. But it's not perfect now. I'm still seeing some discrepancies. Close quarter engagements with T-34s still not resulting in immediate deaths like it should with high velocity weapons. But again, it is getting better, and as long as they continue to work on it, then I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. On the flip side of that coin, when the game got patched and the Germans were actually able to stand a chance, there was a bunch of people in the forums butthurt about it and started complaining. Forum posts 10 or more pages long about how the Germans are OP now. You just can't win. And sadly, you start to see the results in the matchmaker. You start to see the balance shift. You start to see everybody in German tanks because somebody decided to make a forum post, which might have been sarcastic for all we know. Everybody's a German now, and there's no Russians, so you then have to switch over and try to play Russian tanks just to be able to get into a game. Now, they added some more tiers recently. You can get into Tier 3, you can jump into a Tiger or an IS-1, I believe, and it's not as bad anymore, so things are balancing out a little bit more. It's still harder to play in the higher tiers. in Tiger or Panther, for example, especially in simulator battles. But that mostly has to do with the fact that there's not enough people in the beta. And if I was a developer, I would just let everybody in because I know that's the best way to test your game. You break it, then you remake it. That is the way to roll. You can't be afraid of your game having bugs or breaking down. The more people that are in, the more testing that's going to happen. The more stress it's going to put on servers. The more feedback you're going to get in forums. And perhaps out of those thousands of new testers, maybe you're going to get some that are actually educated. People that actually read books. People that have common sense and logic in their lives. Because I'll tell you right now, out of the couple thousand people that we have in testing right now, most of them don't even know how to open a book, let alone read one. All of the information they have, they probably got out of some poorly produced History Channel documentary. And that's not to say that there aren't people on the forums that do know what they're talking about, but there's so few of them that they're not being heard. All of the posts that are worth a damn are just getting buried by garbage. And that's why we need more testers. Because I know a lot of you guys in my community, really smart people that know your stuff. I've spoken with some of you in the live stream chat. You know your history, you know your battles, you know your tanks. In some cases, you know a lot more than me. We need people like you in the test, but no, I don't expect you to spend your hard-earned money on tank packages. Yes, there's a reasonably priced one now for about $20, but you shouldn't have to pay for beta access. Everybody should just be able to get in so that we can make this game a success. Gaijin, just let people into this beta. Open up the floodgates. Let's get this game rolling. Let's have something else to play. I love my World of Tanks game. I will play it until the end of times. But you know what? I want something else to play that's gonna be fantastic. These tank games are becoming a dime a dozen. Competition is growing. We're gonna see even more because this is becoming a brand new genre. Obsidian Entertainment is entering the fray with Armored Warfare. Obsidian's a westernized developer. I believe they're located in Irvine, California. And I'm not going to say that this is true for all westernized developers, but typically over here, community management is a big deal. It is really important to a lot of these developers and publishers that they hire people where it's their sole purpose to deal with the community, to let us know what's going on. Twitter, Facebook, forums, live streams even. One of my favorite developers, High Res Studios, they hire people to sit on their live stream channel and communicate patch notes. They do live patch notes. They'll open up Smite and they'll have a guy in there going over the patch notes for frack's sakes, live. MechWarrior Online even, with No Guts, No Galaxy on the official MWO live stream. They're always talking to developers, having the podcast and vlogs and doing all this stuff to let us know what's going on. They don't have to do that, but they do anyway, and that's pretty fracking cool in my opinion. And I think that other countries and other cultures need to embrace this style of development. As I said in my last video, competition breeds excellence, and we need more of it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you on the next one.